양지 진불도던 힘이 장존의 문음 진불가 겼다 바그라 다른 찬도 실물도 tumbadirje janla ki shamsar mechanrawar saringi jankamsa jawar tukji shanla yilarma Jigme Phuntsok jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo gongje topan pawar shinji lo gongje topan pawar shinji.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Today we'll teach the final class of the Sutra of Great Liberation. I started teaching the Sutra of Great Liberation since September 7th last year. Before the starting, I had a dream. I just saw there is an entry in my journal. I'd like to share it with you first. Last year, on August 28th, 2020, in the early morning, I had a dream. I saw His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche on a mountain. He was wearing purple monastic robes, appeared to be in his 60s, with dignified features and an imposing stature that inspired faith upon seeing him. After seeing my guru, I held his hand and kissed it. The guru blessed me with an especially joyful expression. I hadn't seen my guru for a long time, so I was both happy and sad, crying continuously. The guru comforted me, saying, "Don't cry, it's all right." I chatted with my guru about some worldly and transcendent matters. This was exactly the same feeling as when I was with my guru before. It was as if I had returned to the time by my guru's side. The feeling was especially warm. After a while I said, "I want to go with you, guru." The guru said, "For now, it's still very good for you to remain there. We'll talk about the future later." After that, there were some blurry scenes that I don't remember very clearly. After waking up, the feeling from the dream was very real. I savored that feeling for a long time. Recently, I had been wishing to teach the Sutra of Great Liberation. This dream was perhaps my guru's affirmation and blessing for me. Today, I feel as though the wrinkles on my face have all disappeared. My mind is very peaceful and my body feels very relaxed. This was the entry from the 28th. Just now was August 28th. This is from September 7th. Today is the first day of teaching the Sutra of Great Liberation, which is very famous in the Tibetan region, and it is a sutra with especially great blessings. Traditionally, when a family member passes away, Tibetans will recite it for them throughout 49 days. They also print it as prayer flags, carve it on stone tablets, and make prayer wheels with it. However, this sutra has not been widely shared in Chinese Han regions. Although, according to historical records, it was already translated into Chinese in the 6th century, we have never been able to find out who the translator was. For a period of time, many kings and emperors in Chinese Han regions valued it quite highly, but later it was not emphasized as much and did not receive wide teachings like other sutras. I originally thought the Sutra of Great Liberation had been translated from Chinese into Tibetan, but when researching materials recently, I discovered in the Bavarian State Library in Germany there was a version written in gold powder. At the end it states, "This sutra was translated by the Indian Pandita Jinamitra and the Tibetan translator Yeshes SDE." So we should be able to confirm that a translation existed during Tibet's early translation period. Moreover, this German version, when compared with the version in the current Tibetan canon, there is absolutely no difference between the two. Thus, some people in Chinese Han regions believe it is an apocryphal sutra. This view can be completely dispelled. In the evening, I taught the Sutra of Great Liberation. There were more than 4,000 people listening online. Last year, there were that many. Later, they were all gone. So those of you here listening today can be considered the final survivors. Now let's recite.
양지 진불도던 힘이 장존의 문음 진불가 겼다 바그라 다른 찬도 실물도 tumbadirje janla ki shamsar mechanrawar saringi jankamsa jawar tukji shanla yilarma Jigme Phuntsok jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo gongje topan pawar shinji lo gongje topan pawar shinji.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. There is also a work composed by Karma Chakme Rinpoche, the condensed meaning of the Sutra of Great Liberation. I've also translated it today. Actually, this has long been a tradition in Tibet. If you really don't have time to recite the Sutra of Great Liberation, then you may recite Karma Chakme Rinpoche's condensed meaning. Karma Chakme Rinpoche says below that if we recite it once, this is the same as reciting the full Sutra. Of course, what we say the same, I think now, for instance, we often have television series with 70 or 80 episodes, and then there is a 5-minute condensed short film. It might be similar to this, but whether it completely includes all the content here, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the specifics. The laws of cause and effect are very profound. I'm not sure if I have the lineage or not. It seems I do, yet it seems I don't. Anyway, when I went to herd yaks, I often recited it myself, but I haven't recited it for a long time since then. Now it has all become unfamiliar again. Anyway, I'll recite it once. Maybe I seem to have the lineage. I thought about it for a long time. Yesterday I told them I seem not to have the lineage. Last night I thought about it, and it seems I do have it. I can't say for certain, but I will recite it anyway.
다른도 디바식소 좀던데 대장석바 접점바 양덕불조바 상견 대바당 마심바당 따르직바 상견당 장주 상화당 박반양돈 랑상제 탐칠라 성철로 대농섬당 송로양럽 정리라 성철로 대우락석바 탐치 지식고동 랑쯤출된 나라 성철로 정철로 초도 겹음치고 신기랍도 소르 옴나모 버다야 나모 다르마야 나모 상가야 한탄터 다라노 타야타 아카샤노 바바노 서라 다르마노 바노 어샤마타 바바샤나 바마라 스파르 다르마나카나 바르르나 자야 tamale zale hale hale shabate manda suha tarndo dibandanit karma chigme ki tarndo tsari dam nyambro so.
Very well. Next, after finishing teaching today, we'll make chalk offerings. After the chalk offering, we'll recite the King of Aspiration prayers. Then we'll still have our review session. Today, the last day, marks a complete conclusion. Now let's look at and explain the literal meaning. Today is the final class of the Sutra of Great Liberation, and the content is relatively straightforward. Is this university lecture series being distributed? It's not, right? All right. Now let's teach the Sutra of Great Liberation. Yesterday, the Buddha told Bodhisattva Manjushra that regarding this sutra, if we recollect, visualize, and generate faith in even one verse for even a very brief moment, if we practice such virtuous Dharma, we can eliminate heavy karmic obscurations of birth and death equivalent to 9 billion ayutas of Ganges river sands and dispel all darkness. We will understand that the Tathagata abides eternally without cessation. This principle was already explained before. Today, first of all, the Buddha taught the merit of paying respect to the Buddhas of the 3 times. Then he spoke of Prince Virtuous to See and others, explaining the merits of this sutra in accord with their aspirations. He also spoke of the Dharma protectors, which can also be called the 8 classes of gods and nagas, their protection of those who uphold this sutra, and so on. This is today's content. At that time, the Bhagavan proclaimed this again for the great assembly in the form of verses. Here it says, the powerful ghosts and spirits, meaning those in our world with exceptionally great power, such as certain spirits among the hungry ghosts and various other mighty ghosts and spirits. Among animals, there are evil elephant kings. In the past, Devadatta specifically sought to harm Shakyamuni Buddha. Then he got an elephant drunk, drove it toward the Bhagavan. Even then, it did not harm the Bhagavan. Such were those evil elephants. There were also prostitutes. Before Shakyamuni Buddha, there were some prostitutes who slandered him in various ways. There were also evil nagas Nagas, those who stirred up storms and waves throughout the world. Later, the Buddha caused them to take refuge as well. Anyway, there were especially frightening evil Nagas in the world. There were also countless wicked people, bad people in our human world. When the Buddha was in the world, they were particularly numerous. Now it goes without saying. There was also a person named Vasu. This Vasu was effectively the first to initiate blood sacrifices, an especially evil person in Brahmanism who performed sacrifices involving killing. Everyone knows Ajatashatru, the king of unborn resentment. He killed his own father. When we taught the Contemplation Sutra, it was explained in the initial section regarding the sutra's origin. At that time, he killed King Bimbisara. Then there was Devadatta. Everyone also knows that he committed 3 of the 5 actions of immediate repercussion in one lifetime. That is, creating schism in the Sangha, causing the Buddha's body to bleed, and also, when he was disrespectful to the Buddha, when he caused the Buddha's body to bleed, the Bhiksun Utpalavarna, who had already attained the fruition of arhatship, went to admonish him. However, he struck the Bhiksun Utpalavarna with his fist. The blow was so violent that her eyes popped out and she died on the spot. He also killed an arhat. Devadatta committed especially many evil deeds. There was also Angulimala, known as the garland of fingers, who killed 999 people. These were truly frightening individuals. There is a person in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra called Ajita. In one lifetime, he too committed 3 of the 5 actions of immediate retribution. First, he had an improper relationship with his own mother. Later, fearing his father would find out, he killed his father. Then, after some time, he discovered that his mother was having an affair, so he killed his mother as well. After killing his parents, he had committed 2 of the 5 gravest sins. Later, he also worried because his guru was an arhat. He feared the guru would use clairvoyance to discover his crimes, so he killed his guru, the arhat. Later, he developed some regret. He went to a monastery, intending to seek ordination, but the monastics there would not accept him. Everyone knew he was a person who had already committed 3 of the 5 actions of immediate repercussion. At that time, he developed great anger once again and burned down all the monastics' houses. Countless monastics were burned to death inside. In the end, he sought out Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha knew the dispositions of sentient beings, so he accepted him, and by teaching him the Dharma, Ajita gradually purified his negative karma. He eventually generated bodhicitta. So in Buddhism, there are people like this who committed 3 of the 5 actions of immediate repercussion, meaning they killed their father, mother, and an arhat, and also burned down the monks' quarters and killed monastics. Yet, by relying on the Dharma, they also attained liberation. Of course, these are probably a special case. Not everyone will be like this. Perhaps in the end, their mind of repentance was also quite urgent. It could be due to this reason, among others. The bodies and minds of these people had developed extremely grave karmic obscurations, whether the 5 actions of immediate repercussion or other deeds that would ordinarily lead to rebirth in the Avicii hell. But later, because these people developed faith in the 3 jewels, after developing faith, they prostrated to the Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. Through prostrating to the Buddhas of the 3 times, even these individuals found the opportunity for liberation. After this, after the infinite Buddhas in the 10 directions, actually this should be one layer of meaning. Although the Buddha said in our world there were people who were extremely frightening and committed all kinds of evil, later because they had faith in the Buddhas of the 3 times and paid homage to them, they had the chance not only to avoid falling into lower realms, but even if they did fall, it was like a bouncing a ball, or in an instant they attained liberation. There are such situations. This is the first point. When Shakyamuni Buddha was approaching nirvana in order to abide eternally for countless kalpas, as the physical body inevitably must enter nirvana when approaching the teaching of this sutra, he had already gone to the sal trees where he would display nirvana, yet his dharmakaya abides permanently without cessation. For this reason, he caused the people of Magadha to generate bodhicitta. After generating bodhicitta, they indeed responded to the Buddha's exhortation. He led the people of Magadha, since Magadha was King Ajatashatru's country, and its capital was Rajagra. The primary circumstances for the proclamation of this sutra also began from Rajagra. The people there at that time basically all generated bodhicitta. Actually, generating bodhicitta is not only a condition from this life. They had previously shown respect and prostrated to the Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. Through these conditions, even as the Buddha was approaching nirvana, his dharmakaya remains undying. Thus, to bring benefit to the sentient beings of Magadha, when the Buddha was approaching nirvana, these people also generated bodhicitta. One source of generating bodhicitta was the Buddha's teaching to them. Another was the conditions from having previously shown respect to the Buddhas in the 10 directions. Then there were Ajñata Kaundinya and the other 500 Shravakas. In the sutra we taught last year, there was a prophecy given to 500 disciples. In the Lotus Sutra or the Vimalakirti Sutra, it should be the Lotus Sutra. There, 500 disciples specifically received prophecy. These people will accomplish the path of Buddhahood in future lives, all from showing respect and prostrating to the Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. This means Kaundinya and the other 500 Shravaka arhats, their receiving of prophecies to become Buddhas in future lives is due to these causes. On one hand, it is related to their virtuous deeds in this life. Also, they had previously shown respect and prostrated to the Buddhas of the 3 times. There is such a reason. There were also the non-Buddhist Brahmins, the 10 great sages and renunciants. The Mahaparinirvana Sutra mentioned the names of these 10 great sages and their attitudes toward the Buddha at that time. At the beginning, when the Buddha was teaching the Dharma, those sages pointed fingers and criticized. In particular, they began to disparage when the Buddha proclaimed the teachings on emptiness. Later, the Buddha taught each of these sages, including Kashyapa the sage, the pure sage. There were 10 sages were spoke of when we taught the Bequeathed Teaching Sutra the other day, the final Subhadra and so on. When you all look at this, it's in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra. These 10 sages and Brahmins all attained the fruition of arhatship eventually. Their attaining arhatship was not without cause. It should be that in the distant past they all showed respect and prostrated to the Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. You see here it says in past times, which means they all did this in the past. So, in this very life, some Brahmins attaining the fruition of arhatship, some sages and renunciants attaining the fruition of arhatship, or the Buddha's great disciples mentioned before attaining the fruitions of bodhisattvas or arhats, on one hand was due to meeting the Buddha, such a great accomplished master. There is such a reason. But on the other hand, they had conditions from past lives. So, when the fruit is ripe, it falls from the stem. When conditions converge, accomplishment naturally manifests. There is also such a reason. Then, realizing the ultimate meaning for themselves, some bodhisattvas, through the guidance of a spiritual teacher, have already completely awakened to the supreme ultimate truth, the meaning of the inseparability of appearance and emptiness. Bodhisattvas like this, and all bodhisattvas in the Buddha realms of the 10 directions, and those who are about to be born in Sukhavat, or who have already been born in the realm of Amitayus, whether they awaken through their own power, or are bodhisattvas of the pure realms, and bodhisattvas born in Sukhavat, all reach this through showing respect and prostrating to the Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. Here it consistently emphasizes showing respect and prostrating to the Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. This is crucial. Actually, regarding our Sutra of Great Liberation, its condensed meaning is stated very clearly in Karma Chakme Rinpoche's condensed meaning of the Liberation Sutra. We should prostrate to all Buddhas of the past, present, and future, all Bodhisattvas, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas, and all the 12 divisions of the Tripitaka. This is very important. When we usually prostrate, perhaps everyone only prostrates to one Buddha, one Guru. This is not quite enough. When visualizing, the scope of visualization can be expanded. When we practice the 5 preliminaries or recite Guru Yoga, just as it's taught in the Sutra of Great Liberation, indeed in this world, there are so many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who have already appeared in the world, who are appearing now, and who will appear in the future. We prostrate to all of them, pray to them, and respectfully make offerings to them. We will then receive true blessings in our mind stream. Palma Chakme Rinpoche's condensed meaning just now. As for the content of the mantra, it begins with prostration to the three jewels. I am not certain of the rest, but it likely carries a similar meaning to what came before. It seems there's another condensed meaning by Karma Chakme Rinpoche, but in that one, each of the 12 divisions of sutras is prostrated to individually, so I chose this one and translated it. Actually, as everyone knows, whether realizing for oneself, benefiting sentient beings, or purifying karmic obscurations, we should always learn to prostrate to the Buddhas of the three times. Especially as Buddhist practitioners, it's best to have a personal shrine room at home. If you don't have a shrine room and various aspects are inconvenient, then you can also visualize mentally, or you can simply place something in front of you. Nowadays everything is very convenient. Some people may have family reasons and cannot openly practice their faith, or reasons related to their identity. In such cases, you can keep a Buddha image on your phone, then open it, place the phone in front of you and prostrate. If someone comes, you can immediately switch the screen to a cartoon. This also works. It's quite convenient. If someone discovers it, oh, I didn't know, I accidentally swiped onto this Buddha image. This also works. Indeed, in our times nowadays, things can be very convenient for the practices we wish to do. If you want to read scriptures, you can do so on your phone or computer. For listening to teachings, you can also use these devices. Even for making offerings to the Buddha and reciting scriptures, in a certain sense, it's not necessary like before to carry a big pile of books and Buddha statues. If everything is illusory like a dream, we can use illusory, dreamlike methods to accumulate merit and purify obscurations. Then the Buddha said to Prince Virtuous to see. Next, the Buddha told one of his own stories. He tells his own experience in verse. It is a narrative of his own history. We often say, like Westerners, including when giving lectures at schools, they tell a personal experience and then use this fact to begin, thereby capturing everyone's attention and encouraging reflection. So the Buddha, in fact, his way of teaching is often combined with his own stories. Perhaps many of us will easily discover this. The Buddha told Prince Virtuous to see, in the past I became a king whose was great sage giver. Here giver means giving, charity. Some changed it, but there's no need to change it. In Tibetan, giver means to give, to bestow. The king's name was Great Sage Giver. At that time, the son of the Buddha had not yet risen. Buddhism was not flourishing. It was a remote country. But he made offerings to monastics then. What kind of monastics? Perhaps they were Brahmins or monastics from other religions. Just as today, within various religions, there are different types of monastics. For example, in Catholicism, Christianity, and many other religions, they have their own monastics. Hinduism also has their monastics. At that time, he made offerings to 500 Brahmins. What did he offer them? Food, clothing, bedding, and shelter. That's what we call the 4 offerings. He fully provided these offerings for 20 years. This king made offerings for a very long time, 20 years. In Tibetan, it's 20 years, but in some versions it says 12 years. I'm not quite sure which is reliable, probably 20 years. Both the Tibetan and Chinese versions say he made offerings for 20 years, and at this time he told the Brahmin masters whom he supported, "Masters, generate bodhicitta." He said, "I've been making offerings to you for 20 years. Now you should generate bodhicitta." He urged them to generate bodhicitta. As a king, having made offerings for such a long time, the king must have been someone of Mahayana lineage. At this time, these Brahmins, although they accepted his offerings, actually they did not have faith in the 3 jewels. So these masters gave him this answer. They said, "There is no bodhi in the world, and there is no liberation." They told the king, "We will not generate bodhicitta, because in this world there is no such thing as bodhicitta. Bodhi doesn't exist, and liberation doesn't exist either." They were probably equivalent to Samkhya non-Buddhists or Karvaka non-Buddhists, such Brahmins. They said this, and at this moment the king, Great Sage Giver, says, "We heard these words. I," referring to the king and perhaps his retinue, after hearing this, in order to actually protect the Mahayana teachings, cut off the life force of the 500 Brahmins. After all, a king is a king. He's quite fierce at killing people. He first made offerings for 20 years. Everything is impermanent. Then, because they refused to generate bodhicitta, so he nourished these 500 Brahmins well and then killed them all. I made offerings to you for 20 years, yet you still refuse to generate the mind of enlightenment. So he killed them all, and after killing them, this king, who was a past life of Shakyamuni Buddha, just like the great compassionate merchant who killed someone, did not commit a sin. This is because he acted without any selfish motivation, like in some scriptures. He had no self-cherishing mind. He was completely protecting the Mahayana Vaipulya Sutras. After these people died because they slandered the Mahayana, they all fell into Avicii hell. After they finished their time in Avicii hell, they each began to have 3 reflections. I know, similar to the awareness one has when being born in the celestial realms. Generally speaking, having such clarity in the hell realms is extremely rare, but perhaps they were a bit different from others. For example, where did I come from? Oh, I originally came from the human realm. We were originally 500 Brahmins. Where am I now? Now I am already in the hell realms, they also knew. Then by what karma brought me here? Through the karma of slandering the Mahayana Dharma. After they had these 3 reflections, they prostrated to the Buddhas of the 3 times. Perhaps during their time in hell, they also silently remembered and prostrated to the Buddhas of the 3 times, and had faith in the Vaipulya Sutras, that is, honoring the Buddha jewel and the Dharma jewel, and having faith in the Mahayana Sutras, then also having reverent faith in the great Bodhisattvas and the Sangha, the 3 jewels. After having these 3 thoughts and recognizing their true situation, once they finally understood, they immediately repented and prostrated to the Buddha from within hell, had faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Because of this reason, they were liberated from hell instantly and were reborn in the pure land of Amartadvaja Buddha. At this time, their lifespan was 10 intermediate kalpas. This was the actual outcome for them. Though they initially fell into hell, their eventual liberation, actually it was also because of generating faith and prostrating to the Buddhas of the 10 directions. This is what led to it. So whether we are in the human world or even if we were to fall into the lower realms in the future, if it's possible to generate faith in the 3 jewels, an immediate opportunity for liberation arises. This applies even here in the human world. Sometimes when we are particularly suffering, particularly sad, we should realize this might be the karma from my past lives or the negative conditions from slandering the 3 jewels that led to this. Knowing this, I should sincerely repent and prostrate to the Buddha. Some people who are now in the late stages of cancer, some people with particularly serious conditions, they frequently prostrate to the Buddha, frequently recite scriptures and repent. After doing this, they sometimes recover without even realizing it. Actually, this is truly, sometimes whether in the human world or in the hell realms, the merit of prostrating to the 3 jewels is inconceivable. In our hometown, there are many like this. They've already gone to the hospital. The hospital issued a critical condition notice. There was no hope of saving them. Beyond cure, then they came back. After coming back, they spent their short remaining life circumambulated a stupa. Just like this, they unknowingly recovered. So sometimes in this present lifetime, if one wishes to remove many obstacles and illnesses, prostrating to the Buddha is an excellent practice. The other day I mentioned there is an elderly lady, a centenarian in my hometown. They say that every day she prostrates to the Buddha 100 times. Even now she still prostrates to the Buddha 100 times without interruption. Some say 101 years old, others say 100, but she continuously does not interrupt, like a 100-year-old person who prostrates to the Buddha 100 times, when we other people do 10 prostrations. Huff, huff, oh my, so tired, can't do it, my body is not well, my heart is almost failing. prostrating to the Buddha is truly very important. I am sharing this from my own experience. A few years ago, I still prostrated 100 times every day. Lately, I haven't been doing it as much. Even those 3 prostrations at night, some nights I do them, some nights I don't. Now I'm becoming more and more degenerate. As for these Brahmins, at that time in the beginning, they slandered the true Dharma, and because they did so, they fell into the hell realms. Later in hell, they generated faith in the 3 jewels and obtained liberation. Therefore, at that time, the Buddha told them, "How much more so for you, great Bodhisattvas?" He was addressing Prince Virtuous to see and his companions. Prince Virtuous to see, for great Bodhisattvas like you, it goes without saying. Even those who they had fallen into hell, if they generated faith, they had the opportunity for liberation. Then all the more so for you. You are endowed with conscience and shame. Moreover, you understand that the nature of karmic transgressions has no inherent existence. Simply for the benefit of all sentient beings, you repent the 4 root downfalls, the 8 prohibitions, the 5 inexpiable karmas, and even the transgressions of anicyantika, so you certainly have the opportunity for liberation. The Buddha said, even after falling into hell, if one generates faith in the 3 jewels, there is still the opportunity for liberation. Next, if ordinary people, if they have committed the transgressions mentioned above, including the 4 root downfalls, or the 8 root downfalls, the 5 inexpiable karmas, slandering the Dharma, ichantika, if one frequently remembers and prostrates to the Buddhas of the 3 times and can repent in this way, then by eliminating the 4 grave, the 8 prohibitions, the 5 inexpiable karmas, and ichantika, one will definitely attain the path to Buddhahood. The only exceptions are those who lack faith, those without even a bit of faith, or even whose wrong views are becoming stronger and stronger. In that case, perhaps even if the Buddha were to appear, there would be no way to help. Indeed, for each and every one of us, faith is especially important. Of course, faith isn't something that appears just because you want it. Just like money, many people like money, but it's not that for everyone who visualizes money, money will come. Some people especially want money, and they often dream about it at night. Back when I used to herd cattle, sometimes I would pray to Tara, could I obtain lots and lots of delicious things. At that time, money was very scarce, a big pile of money falling onto my cattle herding path. I prayed like this, but no matter how I prayed, before the conditions have ripened, it won't come. So our faith is also like this. If you want to have faith, indeed some people still, I think this is closely related to one's merit. For those with merit, it seems that any concept or principle about the 3 jewels, they can immediately accept it. Whether in their own practice or study and contemplation, their mind are very capable in many aspects, making it easy for faith to arise. Whether toward the teacher or the Dharma, they don't have any ill will toward anyone. Naturally, it's very good. But for others, it may be sometimes good, sometimes not good. Some people may indeed be like this. As soon as the 3 jewels are mentioned, they are even particularly repulsed. When they see Buddhist scriptures or Buddha images, some people are particularly displeased. I always feel that merit is still very important. The extensive biography of the Buddha tells the story of Prince Merit Power. At that time, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also said, every quality we experience in this life, both worldly and transcendent, is intimately linked to our merit. If one doesn't have merit, many aspirations for this life and future lives cannot be accomplished. What he said is indeed like this. So sometimes faith is not something you can have just by wanting it, but faith is a good thing. If one is endowed with faith and the faith is also very pure, such faith is especially good. If one doesn't have faith, then there is no way forward. No one can help such a person. If one has the mind of faith and understanding and respectfully prostrates to the Buddhas, not attaining Buddhahood is impossible. There is no basis for such a failure. As long as the causes are complete, just like in the Pramanavartika, when causes and conditions are complete without exception, how could the result regress? How could the result not arise? This result will inevitably manifest, because when the causes are complete, the result naturally manifests. This is the immutable law of cause and effect. As long as you have faith, there is hope in practice.
不成无有是说好吧。
It seems that the other day, in the earlier section, I remember there was a sentence, perhaps I skipped a line at that time. You didn't notice or didn't dare to tell me. There's a passage I'll briefly read for everyone here. It's in that section about the 5 dreams. At that time, after the first dream was explained, the second dream is when some people dream that their body enters into the great assembly of Shramanas, entering and sitting in order, that is, sitting in sequence. Then know that this person is a true disciple of the Buddha. If one enters the ranks of the Sangha and sits with them in sequence, this dream actually means that one is a true child of the Buddha. At that time, I likely skipped it. Next is entering into temples and shrines, seeing great images and seeing bodhisattvas. One should know that this person has already obtained the correct path. Perhaps I skipped over it at that time. I'll mention it briefly here. But perhaps some of you didn't notice or something. I remember I didn't seem to recite this part at that time. Only later did I feel like it had been missed. In Tibetan, it has already been recited, the lineage is complete. I said the other day that in the Sutra of Great Liberation, there's a special verse for praising the Buddha. Recently, I received many audio recordings of Buddha praises, some melodies, some songs. I selected one from here. There should be a video. Let me show this to everyone. Let's see how it is. It's about 3 minutes long. I need to take a short rest. Please watch this first, and then we will continue the teaching. Continuing the teaching at this time, Prince Virtuous to See and the 3,000 people together addressed the Buddha, saying, "If we attain the path and become Buddhas, after becoming Buddhas, we vow to liberate sentient beings from the cycle of birth and death. We pray that the Buddha, teacher of gods and humans, the Bhagavan, explain separately for us." Explain what exactly? Upholding the Sutra of Great Liberation, as well as writing it, reciting it, and so on. In this way, what kind of merit is there? They requested an answer to this question. At this time, the Buddha told Prince Virtuous to See and the others, "Listen well, I will explain separately for you. If some people use the 7 precious substances, gold, silver, agate, and other 7 precious substances, to make offerings, making offerings above and giving below to all sentient beings of the trichiliocosm, on this basis proclaiming the Buddha Dharma, suppose all those beings attain the fruition of arhatship. Undoubtedly, the merit of such an act is immense. Using the 7 precious substances to make offerings to these sentient beings and teaching them with the Buddha Dharma, the merit is very great. But this merit is not as good as one person's, simply enabling others to hear the names of these Buddhas, the names of the Buddhas of the 3 times that we explained earlier, the names explained in the Sutra of Great Liberation. Even if one generates but a single moment of faith toward them, or visualizing these Buddhas and making one prostration, then their merit far exceeds the merit just mentioned of someone using the 7 precious substances to make offerings to sentient beings of the trichiliocosm and teaching the Dharma. How much more so if some of us were to meaningfully read and recite this sutra with reverence, generate faith, and prostrate frequently, then this merit is even more inconceivable. So this time, after we have taught the Sutra of Great Liberation, I hope it doesn't become merely a fleeting, momentary thought for you. In the future, mainly in our Han regions and in lands of various worlds, everyone should do their utmost to teach it. The significance is very great. Moreover, sentient beings in the 3 realms of samsara are all drowning in the ocean of suffering. Everyone wants liberation. Then the only method for liberation is indeed this Great Liberation Sutra. As its name implies, it is the Sutra of Liberation, an incomparable pith instruction that enables all beings to be free. Thus, I believe each person should generate this noble intention. You see here, 3,000 people also generate the aspiration for the benefit of sentient beings. Actually, they have already mastered these principles, yet for the benefit of sentient beings, they still act in this way. Each of us should too, during our lifetime. Those who are willing to teach this, let's see, raise your hands. You should be able to do it, right? Good. Some people's hands are very high, like this. Very good. Everyone should generate this aspiration. In the future, if you have the opportunity, try to teach it once or twice. If you really don't have disciples, then just recite it frequently yourself. In the future, we'll provide the most accurate version. This time, I also compared it with the Tibetan, as well as the Dunhuang version and various versions. Although the schedule was quite tight, I worked diligently to cross-reference all these different versions. Finally, a reliable Chinese version should come out. The Tibetan also has different ones, mainly based on the Dirge edition. In the future, we can make prayer wheels. All of these things are possible. So from today, it's not that the Sutra of Great Liberation has finished being taught. It's not like this. For me, perhaps I don't know if there will be another opportunity in the future. It's hard to say. But for you, today should be seen as a beginning. Just now, everyone has already begun to make aspirations. It's not that we have finished propagating. It should start from now. You have already had a very pure lineage. Those who haven't broken the lineage, raise your hands and let me see. Not bad, fine. 97.534% haven't broken the lineage. So this merit is still very great. If someone can write, uphold, and recite, aspiring to constantly prostrate, this act surpasses what? Filling the world with stupas. We build stupas and temples. If they fill the world, of course, the merit is very great. The merit of building stupas and building temples is very great. But if you recite and write, you don't need to build temples and manage construction projects every day. day. Just reciting the Sutra of Great Liberation once at home is enough. I shouldn't put it that way. Otherwise, everyone will want to retire tomorrow, writing resignation letters, and that would be that. This is talking about merit. At this time, what mentioned above describes the karmic connection between the Buddha and Prince Sudarshana. At this time, among the Buddha's retinue, the great Shravaka Mahakashyapa, Ananda, Shariputra, and also the guardian of stupas Vajra warrior in Tibetan. He is the great warrior who protects the world, the one who guards the world, world protecting. In several Chinese versions, he is called the guardian of stupas Vajra warrior, but is world protecting more accurate, because at this point in the text there is no mention of stupas. I don't know if it was a textual error. In Tibetan, he is clearly the great warrior who protects the world. Also the various Brahma heavens, the various chakra heavens, the various wheel-turning kings, the four great kings, they all prostrated at the Buddha's feet. Then together they addressed the Buddha, saying, after the Tathagata passes away, but this passes away sounds a bit less than respectful. Nirvana, in Tibetan it says nirvana. After the Tathagata's nirvana, at that time they said, after the Tathagata's nirvana, all of us, including the many Shravaka, the great arhats, as well as celestial beings, wheel-turning kings, they said, we will promote this teaching and teach immeasurable and limitless sentient beings. Also we will protect and care for those who prostrate, so that they may constantly dwell in peace, because these four great kings frequently protect those who uphold the true Dharma. So what do they protect and care for? Those who frequently prostrate and recite, such people letting their minds dwell in peace for long periods, not being vexed every day. If one is vexed every day, it means the Dharma protectors aren't protecting you well. If the mind is very peaceful, having a peaceful mind is also very important. If the mind is constantly like this, for some practitioners it's like this, they remain steady day after day, year after year. This is relatively joyful. Whether men or women nowadays, cases of anxiety and depression are quite alarming. Sometimes one becomes inexplicably vexed and agitated. This is becoming more and more serious in the world now. But if the four great kings and chakra protect those who uphold the Sutra of Great Liberation, then their mind will be constantly joyful. Also those who have committed, breaking the 4 grave transgressions and 8 prohibitions, the 5 inexpiable karmas, and slandering the Dharma, we should find ways to let them hear the Buddha names in the Sutra of Great Liberation. In this way, let them abide in a pure place, just like you, Prince Virtuous, to see, seeing the true Buddha nature and the original face of the Tathagata Garbha in the future, or will be able to see all the Tathagatas. This section can be said in the presence of the Buddha. At that time, many Dharma protectors and arhats made a kind of commitment. We all know that the 16 arhats in various corners of the world, using their supernatural powers and freedom over their lifespan to maintain our Dharma. That's why we sometimes pray to the 16 arhats. It's very effective for the teacher's long life and for ensuring the Dharma to remain in this world for a long time. So here it seems that as for bodhisattvas, I'm not entirely sure whether the great powerful guardian of the world is a protector deity or a bodhisattva. I'm not quite clear about that. Apart from that, there are no bodhisattvas appearing here. It's mainly there are some arhats, celestial beings, the 4 great kings who come to protect this teaching. They will promote it on one hand, and the other they guard those who uphold the Sutra of Great Liberation. Also for those who have broken their precepts, they will find ways, try to help them encounter this sutra, enabling them to become purified once again. This is actually quite pitiful. Now in our Dharma ending age, including in the Tibetan region, there are indeed many who once ordained who became nuns or monks. Later, for various reasons, they return to secular life. It is true that some, after disrobing, fall into all kinds of negative conduct. Such cases do exist. However, the majority of them still carry an inner awareness that their actions were driven by afflictions and various reasons at that time, but later they still have a sense of remorse. Actually, these people should also have taken the Bodhisattva vow before, and later slandered the Dharma, or took the lay precepts previously, and later violated them for various reasons, or previously took monastic vows and later disrobed. For these people, it's very important to regularly uphold the Sutra of Great Liberation. I have emphasized this before. We see in the Tibetan region some who were once monastics, when they reach their later years, although they cannot return to monastic appearance, they go into personal retreat and frequently recite the Sutra of Great Liberation. There are many such practitioners. This is also very important. At this time, Buddha Shakyamuni told the assembly, "You should listen very carefully. I will tell you a story from my own past." Below, the Buddha himself spoke about one of his own past lives. He said, "Countless kalpas ago in the past, I was in the presence of wonderful light Buddha and heard the names of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and 3 times. At that time, great joy arose within my mind. I joined my palms, paid homage, and received the teaching. Then in every place I taught countless beings. In various places, different locations, I taught countless sentient beings and enabled them to hear the names of the Buddhas. At that time, perhaps in different world systems, I specifically taught the names of the Buddhas of the 3 times. In the future, we should also have people recite the names of different Buddhas more often." Actually, there are also many practices in the Han region. In the daily morning and evening services, there are recitations of the 88 Buddhas, the 35 confession Buddhas, the 53 Buddhas. Some sutras say that what he taught and received at that time were the names of the 53 Buddhas. Among those countless multitudes, only 3,000 people shared my aspiration for the Dharma. In Fai Yi, the single person radical on the side can be omitted. This means that among the countless people at that time, there were 3,000 people who had the same aspiration as the Buddha for the meaning of the Dharma and developed immeasurable faith. Among so many people, they had the same affinity with the Buddha, the same aspiration for the meaning of the Dharma. Then they developed immeasurable faith. Following my example, they began together to prostrate to the names of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Now I have discovered that these 3,000 people in the world systems of the 10 directions have all attained perfect enlightenment. The Buddha said that the merit of reciting Buddha names and prostrating to the Buddhas is very great. Those who, like me in the past, had faith in this Dharma door, these 3,000 people, have now manifested Buddhahood in various places. The Buddha told the assembly, "If virtuous men and women wish to eliminate the 4 grave sins and the 5 inexpiable karmas, as well as the karmic actions of slandering the Mahayana Dharma and being ichantika, it all depends on one's own faith. Indeed, if one has this faith, then there is a very good opportunity for confession and repentance." The Buddha continued, "Virtuous ones, if people have no respect and no faith, and not only have no respect and faith, but also disparage and show disrespect, if they have no reverence at all for the 3 jewels, then slander these 12 divisions of teachings. Such people will certainly, from the perspective of the Dharma, slander the 12 divisions of sutras. From the perspective of the Buddha jewel, they slander the Vajra body, the majestic Vajra body, adorned with the marks of the Buddha, and from the perspective of the Sangha, they slander great beings like Manjushra Bodhisattva and so forth, and they slander the Buddhas of the 10 directions and so on. Such people will definitely fall into the hell realms, as the law of cause and effect never fails in the slightest. Karmic debt is never exhausted or mysteriously vanishes halfway. Not in the least. The law of cause and effect is not false in the slightest. Truly, I often reflect on this. For all of you here, if in this very lifetime you can truly realize bodhicitta, cultivate renunciation, and realize dzogchen, that would naturally be the very best. But if you really cannot achieve those heights, in this very life you should govern your body, speech, and mind. It is vital not to slander the 3 jewels. If you slander the 3 jewels, no matter what kind of title you attach to it, in the end you alone will have to bear the karmic consequences. In the end you alone have to bear the karmic consequences is really not worthwhile. If we hadn't encountered a spiritual friend and fell into hell, that would be unavoidable. But after encountering a spiritual friend and clearly understanding the Dharma, to then still fall into hell, that is truly pitiful. Yesterday's session in our sutra also taught that if you encounter a spiritual friend, There is liberation and the arising of bodhicitta, but without a spiritual friend one falls into hell. There was such a passage yesterday that is truly how it is. In some sutras it says that because this sentient being encountered a spiritual friend, they didn't have to be reborn 500 times as a dog. In some sutras I've translated and taught before, it also says this: the causes and conditions of human beings are truly wondrous. If you encounter a harmful friend, it's very possible that everything achieved earlier will be completely wasted and destroyed. There is this possibility. We should preferably not be swayed by others and have a firm conviction. No matter what, I've been studying the Dharma for so many years now. I won't claim to have other great accomplishments, but at least I should maintain my bottom line. How do I maintain this bottom line? No matter what hardships and difficulties I encounter, I'll have the firm conviction to not slander the three jewels. Even if I might generate some wrong views, keep my mouth sealed. Do not slander the three sacred ones or the three jewels. Think this way. This is quite important. Why is this? Because of lacking faith. Falling into hell, you see, is primarily due to lacking faith. They develop wrong views and they lack faith and slander the true Dharma because they lack faith and slander the true Dharma, and also slandering superior ones. Superior ones here refers to the Guru. In the Tibetan text, it says that if you slander the true Dharma, you will definitely fall. If you slander your Guru, you will definitely fall. Slandering all the Buddhas of the 10 directions and 3 times will also definitely lead to falling into hell. We should firmly remember this in our hearts, otherwise studying the Dharma is of no use. If you still continuously slander the 3 jewels after studying, that is truly pitiful. Because if you have faith in the Buddha and sincerely prostrate, it is impossible that the 10 unwholesome actions, the 5 inexpiable karmas, and the slandering, the Vaipulya teachings wouldn't be eliminated. If we have faith and practice prostrations, then failing to eliminate the 10 unwholesome actions, the 5 inexpiable karmas, and the karmic actions of slandering the Mahayana Dharma, that's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. As long as you have faith, this opportunity is actually very good, regardless of what we did in the past out of ignorance or because of the influence of harmful friends, whatever karmic actions we have created. From now on, we should become very good practitioners. I won't claim to be an especially good practitioner, but at least for the rest of my life, I won't slander the true Dharma, the Guru, or the Buddha. This way is achievable for us. Except for those without any faith, those who have severed their roots of virtue, the Echantika. Aside from those who have no faith whatsoever, the Echantikas who have cut off all wholesome roots, for such people no one can help them. Even if the Buddha appeared, there would be no way. The Buddha told the assembly of virtuous ones, in fact, in this world there are 100 billion emanations of Buddha Shakyamuni manifesting in various ways, his emanations teaching beings across different lands. Among them, the last Buddha Shakyamuni is the one you see today. It is me. We know that in this so-called Saha world, there are emanations of 100 billion world-honored ones in the different pure lands of Buddha Shakyamuni, all guiding sentient beings. In some of them, some pure lands are being established, some pure lands are being destroyed, some Buddhas are being born, some Buddhas are entering nirvana, some Buddhas are turning the wheel of Dharma. There are different ones. Of course, what we're talking about here is the inconceivable dimensions of the vast universe. This is a very mysterious and wondrous reality. But indeed, in the Mahayana Dharma, there are many inconceivable things. Throughout our entire 3,000 great thousandfold world system, there are countless Buddhas. The emanations of the Buddhas are also infinite and boundless. Among them, the Buddha said that the last Buddha, the one you saw at that time, that was me. At this time, those 3,000 people have now all become Buddhas. At that time, because they were in the presence of the Tathagata, they had aroused bodhicitta. Just now, in the presence of wonderful light Buddha, there were 3,000 people who had the same faith as the Buddha. Those 3,000 people have now all become Buddhas. The first 1,000 Buddhas of the past are led by flower light Buddha and these Buddhas. The middle 1,000 Buddhas, these 3,000 people, are led by Lukya Buddha. Some texts refer to him Vajra Buddha. It seems in our Tibetan version it says they is led by Vajra Buddha. The latter 3,000 people are led by Maitreya Buddha. Lukya Buddha and Maitreya Buddha are originally among the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate Kalpa, but Lukya Buddha mentioned here could refer to either. But the future 1,000 Buddhas are mainly led by Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya may be the Bodhisattva we know, manifesting under different names upon attaining Buddhahood. The future 1,000 Buddhas should still have Maitreya Buddha as the leader. Thus it was said at that time, "You too should pay homage to such names of the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and 3 times in the future you should also proclaim and teach for the multitude, reveal the true path, and widely deliver those who are wandering in ignorance, widely benefit the sentient beings who are in spiritual darkness." Prince Excellent View and his group are also 3,000 people, and the Buddha's group in the past was also 3,000 people. This auspicious connection is very significant. For all of you, prostrating to the Buddhas in this way follows that same pattern. We don't know how many there are. We'll talk about it later. 3 people, only 3 people, proclaim and teach, widely deliver the blind, and widely benefit sentient beings, and enable these sentient beings to leave the 3 realms and abide in what? To abide in a state of tranquility and leisure, residing in the place of awakening. He means that in the future you too will reveal the true path and widely benefit sentient beings, enabling the sentient beings to be liberated from the 3 realms. After liberation, abide in a very tranquil, peaceful, and leisurely state, then establish places of awakening and uphold or teach the true Dharma. In this respect, there is no difference between you and me. At that time, the Buddha gave a prediction to these 3,000 people. It can also be considered a kind of subtle prediction. In the future, you will all be the same as those past 3,000 people, because your karmic connections are very similar to our own karmic connections. Actually, for all of us here today, if we truly encounter the true Dharma and the Buddha, as long as we make good aspirations, in the not-too-distant future, we too will be just like the Buddha and them. We will also truly widely benefit sentient beings, enabling them to leave the 3 realms, enabling them to abide in a state of tranquility and leisure, protecting the Dharma, and becoming inseparable from the Buddha. As auspicious connection is inconceivable, everyone should make this aspiration. Next, at this time, there was a bodhisattva named Dharani. From here, this sutra is basically moving towards its conclusion. It feels somewhat like a dream. When this sutra first began, a very magnificent scene appeared, very like when we hold a Dharma gathering. In the beginning, it's very magnificent, but as it draws to a close, everyone feels a mix of both joy and sorrow. In the past, when we held rather large Dharma gatherings in Hong Kong, everyone was quite happy at the beginning. Yet, when it was finishing, while we were glad that no obstacles had arisen and it had concluded successfully, there was also the sadness of everyone departing for their own homes. As the curtain fell on our gathering, there was a distinct bitter-sweet feeling. At that time, a bodhisattva named Dharani rose from his seat, arranged his robes, joined his palms, and prostrated. In some texts, the character li is missing, but this is acceptable as they both follow the 4-character structure. Both are in the Tibetan text, so it's acceptable to use. He properly arranged his robes, joined his palms respectfully, and addressed the Buddha. "Bhagavan, what is the name of this sutra? How should we uphold, practice, and cultivate it?" He asked this question. At this time, the Buddha told Dharani Bodhisattva, "Virtuous one, this sutra has several names. One is the great all-expansive Vaipulya, the Sutra of Great Liberation." Great all-expansive means unobstructed in all directions, liberation without any obstacles. It is also called the Sutra of Confessing, eliminating negative karma, and obtaining blessings. To confess all negative karma, eliminate it, and obtain merit. This way of upholding it is also acceptable. It is also called the Sutra of the Magnificent Accomplishment of Buddhahood by 3,000 people. The Buddha also spoke of the magnificent accomplishment of Buddhahood by 3,000 people. Prince Virtuous to see, and the 3,000 followers were also given the prediction of magnificently accomplishing Buddhahood in the future. So it can also be called the Sutra of the magnificent accomplishment of Buddhahood. This way of upholding it is also acceptable. It is also called the vast incomparable, meaning its significance is vast and incomparable in every aspect. The incomparable Mahayana Vaipulya. This way of upholding it is also acceptable. It is also called the universal embracing of all, because it represents the ultimate single vehicle. All vehicles, all teachings are contained within the 12 divisions of teachings, which are themselves included in the ultimate single vehicle. This way of upholding it is also acceptable. The immeasurable treasury gate, like a vault of infinite treasures, immeasurable treasures are upheld here. This way of upholding it is also acceptable. It is also called the Vajra treasury, because the content within is so solid and precious that no one can penetrate it. So upholding it this way is also acceptable. Finally, it can also be called the deliverance from all grave prohibitions, as it rescue all grave negative karma. Uphold it this way is acceptable as well. In total, there are 8 different names. The content in the preceding sections, we often refer to it as the all-expansive great liberation, purifying negative deeds through cleansing remorse, perfectly arranged for the accomplishment of Buddhahood, while the content below is not covered in the sutra title. At this time, Dharani Bodhisattva addressed the Buddha. Bhagavan, as you have said, this sutra is truly of the greatest benefit. What the Buddha has said, that this sutra has immeasurable merit. It enables countless sentient beings to eliminate negative karma and accomplish Buddhahood. This sutra is the parent of all Buddhas, the path of all Bodhisattvas, the eye of wisdom for all Shravakas, and the dwelling place for all celestial beings and humans. There are such inconceivable matters. Such are these inconceivable matters. This sutra is beyond comprehension. I shall uphold it. This Bodhisattva made the aspiration to definitely uphold it. In the celestial realms and the human realm, in every places, everywhere. I don't know how well it's being taught in the celestial realms. As for our human realm, I mentioned before that in the Tibetan region, indeed even now, this sutra is essentially recited whenever someone passes away. Living people frequently recite it for confession and purification. In any case, the Sutra of Great Liberation is quite widely propagated. I hope that for us it's not just printing the sutra, though printing the sutra also has great merit. The best approach is explaining this content to everyone. In the future, whether in schools, monasteries, or among lay Buddhist communities, for ordinary Buddhists, if everyone knows the principles of the Sutra of Great Liberation, indeed, there will be the sound of the Dharma everywhere, just like the Diamond Sutra and the Heart Sutra are propagated, very well propagated in Han regions. So when we teach the sutra in the future, it doesn't necessarily have to follow the Tibetan model or the Southern Buddhist model, wearing red robes or yellow robes. Not necessarily. The teaching model can fit to the local customs. For example, for monastics of Northern Buddhism can teach in their own traditional attire and styles, following the ways of Han Buddhism or Southern Buddhism, but if many people know its meaning, this is truly what sentient beings need, and there we have such a pure and authentic lineage. The Tibetan region has preserved the lineage of the Kangyur, whereas in many other places it has already been lost. So during this session, all of you have likely not missed a single word. I feel a bit regretful that when we first started last year, we originally had live video broadcasts. Later, we switched temporarily to live audio only, and eventually all broadcasts were discontinued. Only these few people were present here. With so few people, it simply is what it is. As I just said, due to various local circumstances and conditions, this final portion was still able to be preserved. But I hope that you all should also, not for advertising purposes. Nowadays, many people come for various purposes when we transmit Dharma teachings. They circulate QR codes to everyone. Even before transmitting the Dharma, the QR codes are already continuously circulating online. fine. In such cases, the motivation is not pure. There's no need for this. If the Dharma teacher is truly not after money, of course, in some Western places, they indeed need to rent Dharma centers and venues. In such cases, if one person has to bear the cost, and the venue fees are especially high, if one person has to frequently pay, indeed there's no way. For some maintenance fees, perhaps in the West, there's no alternative. But elsewhere, I believe there should be no such need. Many of these things are unnecessary. So in the future, we should teach with a pure mind. Today, many of you have made sacred aspirations. One day's aspiration should be remembered for a lifetime, not raising your hand today and forget it tomorrow. That might not be very good. Everyone should keep this in mind. Work to enable this sutra to remain continuously, to remain eternally and enduringly in this world. Because at that time it was Dharani Bodhisattva who made such an aspiration in the Buddha's presence to propagate it. The Buddha appeared very joyful. Excellent, excellent, such a great being, retaining the immeasurable entire Tripitaka. The Buddha said, your aspiration like this has immeasurable merit, the entire Tripitaka, all the Dharma treasures. In the future, you shall sit in my place, walk my path. This is very important. Actually, what the Buddha required of future disciples is to sit on my Dharma throne, walk where I walked, do my work, sit in my seat, and walk my path. It means that the Buddha's role is not merely sitting on a throne. He sits upon the Dharma throne to transmit such teachings to everyone. The Buddha walks the path of the Sutra of Great Liberation, a path which is completely unobstructed. He desires for others to walk this path as well. Indeed, personally, over these many years, and now as I approach the end of my life, I've also done my utmost with dedication. I don't dare say I sit on the Dharma throne of my gurus or walk where my gurus walked. I wouldn't presume to say that, but I've also used my humble power to practice. I also hope that many of us should diligently practice, benefiting ourselves and others. Don't let a little bit of reputation or a little bit of success make you extremely arrogant. This is quite unnecessary. Especially some of the teachings I've transmitted are Khenpos, and Khenmos can also transmit them at times. There's nothing wrong with that. I've also transmitted many teachings to you. Today at the meeting of Khenpos and Khenmos, I said, it seems some individual Khenpos and Khenmos are very wary of my lineage. It's never been heard of before. For 10 to 20 years, not transmitting even a single word, acting extremely, extremely afraid. But this might not be necessary. What I transmit is the authentic Mahayana Dharma. If that are my ramblings, you don't have to transmit them. That might be acceptable. In the future, whether it's people from here or from other places, as long as it is the very pure Tathagata's teachings, you should also transmit them as widely as possible. When teaching others, you don't have to say from which Khenpo. You don't have to mention my name. That is perfectly fine. Just say I received it from an anonymous Dharma teacher. That is also acceptable. Regardless, I believe that once the lineage is received, teaching these sutras and treatises in the Han region is very important. Everyone should make such an aspiration. This is very important. When the Buddha taught this sutra, countless bodhisattvas abided in the stage of non-retrogression and non-movement. 80,000 Shravakas aroused the Mahayana bodhicitta. 10,000 bhiksus attained the fruition of arhatship. 84,000 celestial beings obtained the pure Dharma eye. Hundreds of thousands of sentient beings aroused the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. After the Buddha concluded the teaching, everything we spoke of earlier, the initial auspicious connections, the extremely magnificent golden lotus flowers that appeared, and the especially wondrous jeweled ponds, all of these suddenly vanished. Once the Dharma was fully presented, just like a movie in our worldly life, the entire dream-like and illusion-like scene, the curtain was drawn, and it suddenly disappeared. The immeasurable light that the Buddha had previously emitted was also gradually withdrew all this light. The entirety of our original Saha world, with its uneven impurities, filth, and disorder, returned to its original state, just as before. When the Buddha was teaching the Dharma, this world was completely pure and incomparable, a world without any unevenness. But now, at this moment, the Saha world returned to its own original state of impurity, filthy and unbearable, an uneven landscape. Its original true face was restored to its original state. Because people committed evil deeds, the hells also returned to their original state. During the teaching, even the name hell did not exist. It was incomparably pure. But now, because people committed evil deeds, the hells, the hungry ghosts, all the worlds return to their original state. Having finished speaking this sutra, the Buddha began to proceed toward the twin shala trees. He was probably approaching nirvana. Once this teaching was complete, the great assembly, humans, devas, asuras, and others, joyfully upheld it. They were extremely delighted that this sutra exists in this world. On one hand, the Buddha was approaching nirvana, so everyone had a sense of sorrow. But this teaching had already become a Buddhist sutra, and sentient beings joyfully vowed to uphold it. Previously, through the Buddha's pure power of wisdom, this world manifested in its pure state. Next, through sentient beings' impure karmic power, our impure world manifested once again. Just as it says in Entering the Way of the Great Vehicle, the Buddha's pure power of wisdom is extremely great, while our sentient beings' impure karmic power also has extremely great power. Therefore, we should strive very diligently in our practice. With this sutra, I saw that in a certain sense I have researched this. This was probably translated by Kumarajva. Looking at contemporary works, such as the texts we mentioned earlier, the treatise on the perfection of great wisdom, the questions of Brahma Vishesachintin, and the Maharatnakuta Sutra, and many other related sutras, the literary style and prose are very similar. Probably around the 5th or 6th century CE, there were many great masters in the Han region, including Dharmaksema and other especially great translators, and they shared the similar translation styles. But no matter what, for now it is very likely that this sutra was translated by Kumarajva, because the words here, for those of us who have studied the preceding texts, including the Vimalakirti Sutra and the Lotus Sutra, the vocabulary is extremely consistent across these works. No matter what, whoever translated this, actually for our realm of sentient beings, this is incomparable. It is a treasure beyond compare. I hope that all of you here today, and those who come after, including those who hear my audio recording, those who see the video, those who see the text, all equally receive the merit of the Sutra of Great Liberation. May you receive its benefits, blessings, and grace. Everyone, as long as you have faith, I believe you will obtain many benefits from it. Although with this sutra, from when we first began teaching it to the final conclusion, many instances of impermanence have occurred. I have indeed worked very hard, very diligently to persevere. Otherwise, these causes and conditions are not that simple. All of you here have also listened very attentively. I am especially grateful to everyone and all our related volunteers. I won't name them one by one here. All those who have been involved in the Sutra of Great Liberation from beginning to end of this transmission, and all the volunteers who will teach it in the future. I also hope and pray that they all receive the care of the celestial protectors of the white Dharma, as well as the care, blessings, and acceptance of the three roots. May they continuously enjoy health of body and mind and bring benefit to immeasurable, boundless sentient beings. All those who have formed a connection with the Sutra of Great Liberation, all those with affinity or without affinity, whether they are loved ones or adversaries, may they all receive the incomparable blessings and power of wisdom and compassion of the Sutra of Great Liberation and transcend the three realms of samsara, attaining the ultimate and perfect fruition of Tathagata Samyak Sambuddha, benefiting all the countless suffering beings under heaven. Excellent. We'll conclude here today. The all-expansive great liberation, purifying negative deeds through cleansing remorse, perfectly arranged for the accomplishment of Buddhahood.
Om Ramdara Gara Banma Atsadardo